During a wildlife hike, one can usually expect to see plenty of interesting flora and fauna. But what two hikers found during their expedition was bizarre beyond belief. A massive crater lay deep within the woods, and at its bottom stood a strange-looking house. Yet when they went inside, the discovery made them turn pale instantly. But before we continue, smash the like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss our upcoming stories. The crater and the house at its bottom were discovered early Sunday morning by Andrew and Jolene Smith. They were hiking through a dense forest during a vacation trip when they first encountered it. The anomaly was hard to miss, as the area where the crater opened up was completely devoid of trees. The forest they had chosen was isolated, lying on the outskirts of the state with the nearest town over 50 miles away. Its rugged terrain and lack of reliable cell service made it unpopular among locals and tourists, which apparently made it the perfect spot to build a remote dwelling. When the tree line parted and the giant clearing came into view, Jolene was the first to bolt toward the edge. She almost tumbled straight down, as the loose gravel around the rim caused her feet to slip further than she intended. Luckily, Andrew was there just in time to grab her shoulder and pull her back to safety. Jolene exhaled sharply, her voice jagged with adrenaline as she noted how close a call that had been. She tried to calm her racing heart, but her composure shattered again when she spotted the structure below. She shouted in disbelief, demanding to know what the object was. She couldn't fathom what a house was doing in the middle of nowhere, let alone at the bottom of such a deep pit. She wondered aloud if a meteor strike had created the depression. The situation was confusing, but both hikers felt a compulsion to investigate. Without needing to verbalize their agreement, they instinctively moved downward, seeking the safest route. It took them about 30 minutes to descend the steep slopes. Standing in front of the house, Jolene and Andrew examined it closely. The wooden walls were badly weathered, with gray patches showing where the paint had peeled away. The roof tiles were chipped, and a window shutter hung crookedly. It was eerily quiet, save for the wind whistling around the crater walls. Unease settled over them as they circled the building, noticing the windows were completely blacked out, as if covered from the inside. Jolene pressed her face to the glass but couldn't see through the darkness, a fact that fueled both her curiosity and her fear. Andrew ran his fingers along the siding, whispering that the rough, splintered wood suggested the builder hadn't been a professional carpenter. Jolene looked at the front door, then back at Andrew, silently asking if they should enter. They stood side by side, tension building in their chests. Jolene took a shaky breath and slowly placed her hand on the old, rusted doorknob. She hesitated a moment, listening to their quick breaths, before twisting the knob. To her surprise, it was unlocked. The door creaked open, releasing musty air that mixed with the earthy smell of the crater. Andrew clicked on his flashlight, cutting a beam through the gloom. The interior was dark, illuminated only by slivers of light slipping through cracks in the boards. Surprisingly, the living room felt cozy, resembling a cabin someone had only just vacated. A pair of slippers rested neatly by a threadbare rug, and a mug sat beside a battered armchair. Jolene stepped carefully across the floorboards, which bent under her weight, noting the thick layer of dust covering everything. However, she whispered in confusion when she saw the mug still held dark liquid, as if someone had just taken a sip of morning coffee. Andrew examined the mantel above the cold fireplace and picked up a faded photograph in a wooden frame. He squinted at it, unable to make out the faces, but he saw two people standing outside a house that didn't look like this one, at least. The house in the photo was white, well-maintained, and stood on flat ground, not in a crater. Upon closer inspection, Andrew realized with amazement that it was the same house. He recognized the orange roofing and the orientation of the windows. He wondered aloud how and why it had been moved to this forsaken place and who the people in the picture were. Determined to solve the mystery, he placed the photo back and insisted they find out more. They moved through the house, their voices echoing as they called out to anyone who might be home. There was no answer. The heavy silence felt like the calm before a storm. and Jolene remarked with a sliver of fear that something wasn't right. The kitchen deepened the mystery. It looked as though someone had just stepped out. A plate with a half-eaten sandwich and a bowl of unspoiled fruit sat on the table. Jolene touched an apple, finding it firm, yet the tablecloth beneath it was stiff and web-covered. Andrew checked the cupboards but found only an old can opener. Jolene found the fridge unplugged, which made sense given the likely lack of electricity. In the study, books were stacked untidily, their covers warped with age. Andrew found only strange sketches inside maps that made no sense to either of them. Every room held a contradiction. The spare bedroom had a freshly made bed, yet the pillow was damp with mildew. Clothes were folded in drawers but riddled with moth holes. As their calls for attention went unanswered, their confidence waned. Jolene whispered that it was useless. Either nobody was there or the occupants didn't want to be found. Regardless, she felt watched. Standing in the main room, she muttered that none of it made sense. Andrew, glancing toward the stairs, made the unpopular decision to split up to cover more ground. He would take the first floor while Jolene searched downstairs. Jolene was unhappy with this, haunted by the feeling of watching eyes. But Andrew was already climbing the stairs before she could argue. He assured her she would be fine, as they had already checked the ground floor. Andrew's assumption proved dead wrong, for the house held a secret about to reveal itself. Upstairs, he found a short hallway leading to a single room he guessed was the master bedroom. The room was spacious and smelled less of mildew. It had one window, but the view was non-existent. The glass looked out onto solid crater rock. The back half of the house was built directly into the crater wall. Andrew tried to ignore the bizarre construction and searched the room, finding nothing. Suddenly, he heard a muffled stumbling sound, like someone shifting behind the bedroom wall. It seemed impossible, as he had just seen sheer rock behind the window. Uneasy, he opened the glass and knocked on the stone wall. He was surprised to hear a hollow echo rather than a dull thud. He pressed his ear closer, but the sound did not repeat. Bewildered, he stepped back into the hallway, trying to figure out how space could exist behind a wall pressed against the crater. Before he could investigate, Jolene called urgently from downstairs, claiming she had found something. Andrew hurried down, eager to share his own discovery. He found Jolene behind the kitchen, facing a closed pantry door. When he dismissed it as just a pantry, she looked at him seriously and told him it was much more than that. She opened the door, revealing not shelves of food, but a tiny chamber leading to a staircase carved straight into the rocky ground behind the house. The narrow steps were rough and uneven, dug by hand into the stone. Andrew stared, realizing that since the house was already at the bottom of a crater, these stairs went deep underground. He felt the gritty stone wall, noting the air from the passage was cold and smelled metallic. Jolene stared up the steps with wide eyes, unsure if they should proceed. It was clear the builder had gone to enormous lengths, but their intentions remained a mystery. Andrew realized this passage explained the sounds upstairs. He told Jolene about the hollow bedroom wall and the footsteps he had heard, confirming that a space existed behind the house. Panic set in for Jolene. She wanted to leave immediately, fearing a surprise attack. Andrew, however, was driven by a need for the truth. He promised to protect her, grabbing a metal poking rod from the fireplace as a weapon. After a moment of hesitation, Jolene agreed, and they began to climb the stone steps. Andrew yelled up the dark tunnel, announcing they came in peace and meant no harm. At first, there was silence. Then, halfway up, a voice echoed down, asking if they promised. The response sent a shock through them. They stopped, clinging to each other. Andrew forced his voice to remain calm and confirmed their promise. They continued climbing until they reached a small, candle-lit chamber carved into the rock. Two elderly people stood there, the couple from the faded photograph. They wore simple, worn clothes and looked as surprised as the hikers. The man introduced himself as Walter and his wife as Agnes. Agnes nodded gently, her eyes tired. Walter explained that decades ago, they had lived in the woods to avoid the modern world. When the government planned to clear their land, they made a drastic decision. Instead of leaving, they dismantled their home and rebuilt it inside this crater, reinforcing it against the rock wall so it couldn't be torn down without collapsing the crater itself. They lived in total seclusion, growing their own food and rarely leaving. Agnes explained that a trusted friend occasionally delivered supplies to the crater's edge, but mostly it was just the two of them. Walter gestured to the stone walls, saying this was the only place they could truly be themselves. Agnes added with a smile that they weren't ghosts or criminals, just people who wanted a different life. When Andrew apologized for breaking in, Walter waved it off, noting that the hikers seemed kind and that discovery was inevitable eventually. Jolene felt a strange respect for the couple and their choice of a lonely, peaceful existence. Andrew and Jolene exchanged a glance, thinking of the house and the mystery. Andrew sincerely promised that no one would hear about this from them. Relieved, Agnes handed Jolene a small, carved trinket as a token of remembrance. She laughed softly, remarking that they were the first guests in years, and perhaps the last. Andrew and Jolene descended the stairs, exited through the pantry, and left the empty house. As they climbed out of the crater, Jolene looked back one last time, grateful for the trust placed in them. Back in the safety of the forest, they sat in the shade, letting the experience sink in. Andrew remarked on how amazing it was, what some people would do for the life they wanted. They hiked back in silence, knowing they would never forget the house or the people hiding there. It was a secret they were happy to keep. Upon returning to civilization, they told friends and family only that they had a good hike. No one ever learned about Walter and Agnes. Life went on, but Andrew and Jolene felt changed, carrying the memory as a reminder of how far people will go for the peace they truly need. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss amazing tales like this one.